So, my dear friends, we are reading Bhagavad-gita as it is, with the commands of His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that has commented Bhagavad-gita in the spirit of bhakti. In other words, from the highest spiritual point of view, there are different spiritual levels, there are different points of spiritual points of view. So bhakti is considered to be the highest one, the highest point of view in the world, at the gods, at other living entities. And here, in the 14th chapter that we are about to continue reading today, the material nature is described in its different qualities and according to its different points of view. So, in all this depends on the gunas that influence us. In general, the material nature is called Devi Shakti. And it has a powerful influence because it's really powerful, it's really difficult to overcome. We see that a living being is actually fighting the nature. So it's really hard for us to actually live in this world. So we need to achieve the condition when we suffer the least. So it's almost impossible to overcome with human efforts because it's controlled by higher forces, not by a human. So now we have to know what kind of control this is that is implemented to us by some higher forces. It's controlled by thirst, by sleep. Everything is under control. All my desires, all my actions, this is just an action or reaction to this external world. We just have to adapt somehow. And in this chapter, it is described that there are some different qualities of nature that actually control all these living entities. Some of them, they just motivate living beings to act. And there are some qualities of nature that actually enlighten living beings. It shows us the path, the way to happiness. So until we get in contact with these gunas, we're still ignorant. We stay in the mode of ignorance until we change the guna. So all material nature, all space is actually in these three definitions, in these three notions. Just imagine that. It seems like it's nothing difficult to understand, but the trick is that to get out of these three gunas, because we are tied just like with a rope to these three gunas. We see that in order to be a vegetarian, one should go through some efforts. For some people, it's just impossible. For some people, it is possible. For some people, it's really hard to get rid of bad habits, negative habits. It's really painful. For some other people, it is really hard to stop taking intoxications. For example, for Russians, the person living in Russia, vodka is just like a holiday. That's the association. If it's a holiday, there should be alcohol or cigarettes, for example. If you tell people, let's get rid of these negative habits, it's really difficult for people. So some force makes me remember this taste. It's curious that even if there's no taste left, but still there is this rope is still left. It still holds me. It pins me down to this habit. So we have to learn gunas of the material nature in order to get enlightened, to get this enlightenment. So we have to get in touch with these gunas. Bhakti, this point of view that Srila Prabhupada is commenting, Bhagavad-gita, is actually beyond all these gunas. You cannot see the matter beyond all these material gunas. So that matter doesn't exist there. So paravyoma exists there. Paravyoma means the spiritual dimension of life. So that is the space of life. It's all alive. Everything is alive here. The sounds are even alive. All the subjects, the air, the trees, birds, various living beings that we know, that we do not know here in this world. There's a way bigger variety of living beings in there, and there's no mode of ignorance in there that is defining the matter in whole, as a whole. And if you just unite all this, if you unite all this matter, is just ignorance here, and the part of ignorance becomes the enlightening power. It gives us an ability to see things from inside, to see the purpose of life. Just imagine a person gets lost in jungles. Sometimes it happens. When I was living in the north of Russia, so Taiga, that's the place where I used to live in, there were a lot of people who just got lost there. They couldn't just make the way out of this forest. So the material existence is just compared to a forest. It's a forest of material existence, vana. Nirvana means no forest, beyond. But in the forest, there is a possibility to survive if you see the purpose. We have to see the purpose. We have to see the right way. Inside a forest, it's really hard to see what's going on. There's no space to understand where you are. So just like in the real world, you don't see things to get an orientation. Our view, what we see is just what we have under our feet. Sex, protection, food. Of course, we will not be able to understand anything because we just follow the needs of our body. But if a person gets on top of a mountain, if he climbs on top of a mountain, so he might get this view. If he just goes up vertically, he can see through all this labyrinth. It's like in another dimension. So this sattva opens up. Sattva guna opens up. You're still in jungle, but still the dimension is different already. It's higher than the forest, forbidding you to see things. But now you're on top of the mountain, and you see everything up until the horizon. You're still in the jungles, but you already see the purpose. So this is sattva guna. You can say that you have already survived, but you at least you started seeing the purpose. You can already be considered as a liberated soul because you see the direction. You can get the unmistakable direction. In the mode of ignorance and passion, it's always mistaken. The path is always mistaken because there's so many suppositions. We only suppose things, we don't know things for sure. So this is the hypothesis of just presumptions and technologies. So this is the guna of ignorance, all these technologies. A person is not developing its consciousness, but just the technologies that help us see things, hear things, by using the same ignorant feelings, using minds, ears, and nose. So this is an illusional progress. A person thinks that it's progressing, that he's progressing. So it sees some new models of telephones, of cars, some technical possibilities. He thinks that he's progressing, but matter of fact, he's not progressing. So this person may be called as a user. He's just enjoying this technological progress. But the real progress is that he sees the sense and purpose of his life, and he can contemplate who he is. He can understand who he is. So Prabhupada used to say, how can you call a person that knows everything? Knows how to use bank cards, how to get into subway and get out of it, knows how to drive a car. Probably we know how the way the car functions. If we know how to use electronic devices, he might be quite socially active. He knows everything, but there's only one thing that is missing. He doesn't know who he is. How can you define this person? Who is this person? He says he's crazy. That's the definition of insanity. He might be considered as an insane person. Of course, these people might be very intelligent. They've got a great memory. They can have really intellectual conversations. But the point is that they do not know who they are. So that's why all these signs of ignorance and passion in all these months, it doesn't give us the right direction to ourselves, which can only be achieved through the sattva guna. So we have to understand now, reading this chapter number 14, and we continue from the text number 17. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of patience, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. So, our problem of a modern person, so he thinks that he's free, he's not tied up by any gunas, he's not being influenced by these gunas, he can do whatever he wants. So he talks about self-realization, understanding of ourselves. So modern person just understand things in this way. He thinks that I'm free. But no, in Vedas it says if you're selfish, if you're attached to the fruits of your action, you work a lot, so you are influenced by the mode of passion. You're just being controlled by it. It's just, pulling the ropes. You don't even see how it's happening because you're ignorant. So the mode of passion should be connected with the mode of ignorance. If you feel like you don't understand something, that it's hard for you to understand something. This is a guna of ignorance. Just like Prabhupada used to say to the scientists, there are so many things that you do not know. Why do you consider yourselves to be scientists? If you do not know something, that means you are silly. There are so many things that we do not know. That means that we are silly. And no matter how many things you open up, there will be even more things to discover. So again, where is your progress in knowledge? You're still remaining to be silly. So you see, everything is so entangled. So, well, hold on a second. Where's the knowledge in this case? Should there be any limit to the knowledge? It's like we are considered to be in the process of learning things. So we have to be in this progress. But first of all, we have to understand what the knowledge is. We have to give a definition to this word. What is knowledge? Knowledge means you have to understand three things: who I am, who the God is, and what the material nature is. And after that, you will be able to live in this world in knowledge. If you know who you are, if you know who God is, and what the material nature is. Have you created the material nature? No, of course you don't know what it is. You haven't created it. If you had created it, you would have created something else. Of course, you would have created a place where there is no birth and death, no sufferings, no diseases. Of course, we would have created the world in this way. So if you give this opportunity to each of us, we would have created this world in another way. But God has created this world. So why has He created this world to be an imperfect one? That's what we think. That the point is that this world is perfect. God has not created sufferings. It's just like we have prison. The government creates prison. It's not like this prison is created for you. You will not be in prison. You are the one who choose where to live, to be in a prison or in a free life. But there's a gap. There's a gap between these two notions. In the free world, there is no such notion as prison. There are places that people in the material worlds, these food shops and stadiums and cinemas, so we can get whatever we want. We just fulfill our desires. So prison is a separate organization, separate facility. So if you don't want to live according to the laws of the free world, you have to live in prison. So for ones who want to be responsible, everything is under control of God. But in the mode of ignorance, this is the material nature, material medium. So the main characteristics is that I'm not dependent on God. So I exist and that's it. So this is the mode of ignorance. This is silliness, this is madness, an illusion. And the mode of goodness, real knowledge. It develops the real knowledge and also happiness. Happiness that you feel in this world, it comes out from the mode of goodness. There's like a premonition of happiness also. It's a mode of passion. There's an absence of happiness. So this is tamas. Even when you feel something, you think that you feel something. This is the mode of passion. So those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. So in this age, it is recommended to people to be in a Krishna consciousness. So how do you like this sentence that Prabhupada says? In a mood of bhakti. You just think about, you just contemplate on this sentence and you understand everything. The modern society doesn't care about the future lives. It just thinks about this life. Like what are you talking about? Why do we have to do about the future lives? That's what people think now. So how can you take care of this present life if you do not know about this illusion? You do not know about the flow of life. Everybody is hoping that we'll be happy soon, that we will achieve happiness when we are old. How can you become happy in an old body? Isn't it insanity? But where is caring? Why do we keep talking about the future? But what about the present? Why don't we care about being happy in present? It's just people are striving for the future, think that they will be happy, but they don't know, they don't do anything to be happy now and present. So that's why the method of Krishna consciousness is recommended. You have to elevate in these gunas. So this is the method of Krishna's consciousness. You have to get this knowledge. So this is the method of Krishna consciousness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. Well, you say, is it possible to see things as they are and to see in concordance with everybody else? Wow, this is a shocking. There are so many shocking point of views in this world. So one person sees everything to be correct, but there are some strange people like fascism. Like, how can these people even make up these things? Or someone doesn't believe in God. He says, like, how can I be a believing person? Like, have you ever seen God? Some people think that how can you be an atheist? You should be insane. So in Far Eastern Russia, so there are still some nationalities in there. We don't even know the names of these people, of these nationalities. They're not even listed as nationalities like officially. So they're fishermen and hunters. So they catch fish, they wrap it up in the bark of a tree. They use polyethylene right now, then dig it down into the earth. So then several days after they come back, they open it up, and the fish is half rotten already. There are some worms in there. So this is considered to be something delicious. You can see, how can you eat this? But this is a different mode. This is a different guna. In their guna, this is delicacy. This is delicious, and it can happen to any person. So this person used to be normal, like with good parents, used to be an educated person. How could he go down so rapidly? This is guna because he used to communicate with this guna, and guna has made him this person. If we are not cautious in this world, it's like we're walking on a slippery ice. So one move and you just fall down. It's like a razor. One incorrect move and you cut yourself with the razor. You have to be really cautious. You can degrade and become an animal, become like an animal. So the mission of our society, society of people, is to be in the mode of goodness. This is the minimum. You have to hold on. To hold on to the mode of goodness is so hard to support it. It's supported by Vishnu. Passion is for Brahma, and ignorance is for Shiva. So three living entities are supporting, are controlling all these modes. So we've just fallen down into our theories and ignorance. Every guna is supported by one real living being, very powerful living being. So that's why the world is so big, because there are so many powerful living entities, persons, personalities. So you think that it's just one Earth in here and there are no other planets in the universe? You must be insane to think so. From the very beginning of creation, so it was developing gradually. Now it says that we're just in the middle of the universe creation. So behind all these processes, there are powerful, great individuals, personalities. Vishnu is said to be the greatest one. So he's controlling the mode of goodness. If you want to have good of mode, the mode of goodness, you have to satisfy Vishnu. You don't have to satisfy either people or animal. You have to satisfy Vishnu. So we read this text in the third chapter. Any activity should be directed to satisfying Vishnu, otherwise it's a bad karma. Every food should be offered to Vishnu, otherwise it's a sinful food. Everything should be directed to satisfy Vishnu, because he's the one who's supporting all the living beings. So that's why this creation is leading us to some harmony, the mode of goodness. So this is how the things are in this world. We're not supporting this creation, someone else is doing it. So it has a name, this personality, intelligence, energy, and power. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that by killing one animal, they are taking the chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life. Well, we have to know these things. If people get no proper education and actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education is needed for developing the mode of goodness. It will help them to elevate to the mode of goodness. So when people are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober and full of knowledge as things they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there's the possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for this, for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. It's not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, this money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. When one is engaged in the mode of passion, not only is he mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad. Being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of They take shelter of intoxication, wine and drugs, and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. I've heard that people going down to drugs, to using drugs, so they got a consciousness of a ghost. So it's a very heavy future is waiting for them. Well, possibly not all people understand what it's like to be a ghost. It's just a hellish picture. Don't think that being a ghost is something that is, pleasant. You just fly, just float in the air, in space, you just enjoy life. No, there are some serious problems when being in this condition. Human body is given specifically to solve all these problems. So that's why it's given all these three modes that we choose from. Only we have this choice to choose what we need. But Prabhupada says you need to have a proper education for that. That's why we are reading Bhagavad-gita. If you do not know Bhagavad-gita, if you do not know the description of material modes, the description of soul, God, action, and yoga, so how can we be prepared to change the world for the better? It's impossible. It's just really dragging us in to the insanity. The world has become insane already a long time ago because of all these resources and nuclear weapon. This is all insanity. Living on Earth is actually under the threat because of this material life. Everyone wants to live, but we're threatening to each other using nuclear power, nuclear weapon. So this insanity has become organized. This is called civilization, but that's a true civilization of cats and dogs. But we have to elevate above this level of thinking. And this is all designed by the Krishna's consciousness. There's no such knowledge anywhere. The knowledge that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, why don't we use it in practice? So those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. So these are three directions: to the higher planets, paradise, heavenly planets, earthly planets, and hellish worlds. So we are located in between the higher and hellish worlds. So that's where our destiny is decided. Either we're going to hell, to paradise, or we just prolong this existence in order to make a choice eventually. Someone is looking for happiness in battle and fighting. So that's why they're born on the earthly planet. That's exactly the place where people are struggling. They're fighting for the happiness. So they get some experience of goodness, good and evil. So evil is ignorance, good is goodness. So here we are trying to live in the mood of goodness, in prosperity. So these are our mottos. A person wants to live in pious condition, but as we do not know how to elevate there to higher level, we do not know how to do it. So that's why we have this competition here. So there is a higher power above a person that can elevate everybody at the same time without even fighting, without struggling. When person is engaged in struggling, the mode of passion covers him, and then it just takes this person even down to the mode of ignorance. So that's why we cannot reach the mode of goodness, because the mode of goodness is just beyond these material things. So there's nothing to fight for. Everything is already existent. If you want to get this knowledge, just get it. It's already there. You just have to know the process of how to get it. This is the mode of goodness. Everything is already there. You don't have to use your elbows to have these all competitions. There is no need for that. It's just a mode of passion. When one properly sees that in all activities, no other performers that work, then these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. So we have to understand what is beyond these gunas. Who is there? What's happening there? So more or less, we have this experience living in gunas. We have this view, but what's beyond these gunas? What is this medium? So gunas just function this way. Physical body, our mind, these are all the products of the gunas of material nature. It works automatically. Either we want it or not, but nevertheless, there's a soul in this physical body that is not a part of this nature, material nature. It's not a material guna. It's spiritual by its nature. So this soul is able to see that the material nature is working automatically. I am just the observer. I am not this body. I'm not part of this material world, not part of this material nature. I'm just identifying myself with this material nature, just yantra. So this is the identification. I think this way, but this is a mistake. I am not this body. I am a soul. So the one who understands it, he will be able to see how the material nature is working. He is able to see this. So there are some examples when the airplane is flying and it starts having some problems, probably something with the devices, with the engine, well, something might happen. So being there in the airplane, when people are identifying themselves with this situation, they get really scared. But the person beyond this airplane, he's just staying like somewhere down in the earth in the office, and he's getting these signals that this airplane is having some troubles this moment. So this person calls up some experts that are not in this airplane. They're not supposed to be in the airplane. They're not supposed to be scared. And they start giving some recommendations of what to do, what actions to take, or where to land. They take a look at the map. They give some orientations. They give some really precious pieces of advice. See, there's a big difference between people located inside the plane and outside of it, because there are different gunas of consciousness. They influence differently. You cannot be absolutely peaceful in this mode when you are in the airplane. You have to find someone being able to think soberly. Also, just take a doctor, a wonderful surgeon. He knows how a heart operates. It works, and so he can have the surgeries. But if he has a heart attack, he cannot operate himself. He can even lose his conscience. He becomes totally helpless. So again, he needs someone else to operate him that is beyond this guna and is able to help him. So if we are in these gunas, it says that they're just tied us up, just like ropes. We're just like in a cocoon. They're just holding us tight. So we need someone else to cut these ropes. So these are very good examples. So what's beyond these gunas? Yeah, there is liberation, but is there anyone there? Someone that can get me liberated? You see how simple everything is? I'm trying to get myself liberated myself, but how can I do it without the proper consciousness? If I lack this consciousness, I'm like a purpose having a heart attack. I'm just lying there and waiting until I die. I'm totally insane. Can someone help me? A doctor? Yeah, there is a doctor. There's a remedy. You just have to call for that. You choose. If you don't ask for that, no one comes. So you have to call out for God. If he's located beyond all these gunas, that's the one that we should call to, or the one that is in the God's consciousness. He can also help you. There are some people that live beyond these gunas, liberated souls, just like Arjun, as it says in Bhagavad-gita. He's a liberated soul. and all the surroundings of Krishna, people surrounding Krishna, all the sages, they're being elevated at least to the guna of goodness. They can only say, don't kill, very simple, very important thing. Why is it so hard for us to follow these things? Anger sometimes is so powerful. It's like we have to kill someone. There's so hatred in this world, so many low gunas, it's just impossible to follow these past recommendations. Just a mode of goodness. Like no killing is doesn't mean any spiritual, it's just a civilized human living. Why do we have to kill? It doesn't make any sense. So when a person becomes a vegetarian, he feels immediately that it's easier to live like this. If he doesn't get any intoxications, it's better. But it's better for what? In order to elevate in the mode of goodness. If he stays in the mode of passion, it's just being torn apart by his desires. I want to drink alcohol, but I can't. I want to have some meat, but I'm a vegetarian. He's just been really troubled. This is the mode of passion. So we leave these things behind, and then to make a step forward in the mode of goodness. There's no insanity. I want this, I want that. Why do we have all these desires? Why do we have so many desires? So many things that we don't really need. So it's usually enough to have something that supports your health. And if you are in the mode of goodness, you'll be happy. Not the quantity, but quality. Guna means quality. If you're in passion, now you say that I need so many things. I just want to lock myself up from all these envy people, from all my enemies. There's evil, there's good. So I have to kind of build up a fortress for myself. That's the approach in the mode of passion. So our modern society lives in the mode of passion. In mode of goodness, so these people are considered to be somehow weak by other people. Shrimad Bhagavatam, so there was a story about one king. So he had a son that was misbehaving. So it's something to do with death, his genes. So he was born as a very rude person. But then the king he realized that this like a vampire. Even even when he was a little boy, he used to kill other boys that he was playing with. So then when this king he got disappointed in all this life and his kingdom and his career, so he went to a forest to meditate. He renounced everything. So then his son Vena he took over the kingdom. So this was a typical mode of passion. So he considered himself to be God on the earth. He was doing whatever he wanted to. He thought that he was the God on this planet. But people started suffering because he was pressing them too much. There was no law. So he said that I am the law, I am the king, I am the God on earth. So people just called out to sages, people living in forest, people talking to God, Brahmins following and practicing austerities. So they've understood the situation and they've decided to go to the king and talk to him, give him some directions. He's the servant of God, he's not the God himself. So they told him about it. So you have to worship God, be a presenter of God, be the father of all your people. So take a good care of them. So they started telling him everything that is said in Shastras about what is it to be a good ruler. So this king, he became really angry. He said, I'm supporting you, I'm feeding you, and then you're telling to me about some God? I am the God. So now you have to shut down all the temples. So install my portraits, worship to me and glory me. Write hymns, shoot movies about me, monuments about me. So King Vena said that in those Vedic times. So Brahmins, they get really shocked. They thought, well, he must be insane. So they also got anger, but in a mode of goodness. Just imagine that. Mode of goodness is way more powerful than mode of passion. But anyway, they got angered. So they took the Brahma's robes and they pronounced Brahma Shapa, like a curse, mantra curse. So now we know that the sound is really influential. Even scientists know what's happening when you use some different sounds. So sound can make anything. It can either destroy or create something. It really influences our lives. So these Brahmas, they said this, they pronounced this curse. So this king, when he heard these mantras, his heart just broke out into different pieces. So these mantras were so powerful, they've activated his mind to such an extent that his heart just broke out. So you can either have this heart attack, either you are really shocked and the heart just makes like this, it just blows up. So this king, he just died. This is the mode of goodness. So practice Krishna's consciousness, develop mode of goodness, become powerful. Well, yeah, you will not be evil. If you're evil, the mode of goodness is just going away. You're losing your power, you're losing your strength. You have to use your fists and guns, some weapon. This is for the people living in mode of passion. This is for kshatriyas, for warriors. Brahmins that do not carry any weapon. His word is the weapon. When he says something, this is over. All the kings, they understand it. They just do whatever they say is needed to do. But the king Vena, he has forgotten about it. That's why he has paid this price. There are so many stories like this in Puranas. So when elevating above all these gunas, a living entity gets liberated. So the rotation of gunas, this is the rotation of death and birth. So tamas is destroyed, and so we are born, then we exist for some time, and then we die. So this is the rotation of three gunas. These gunas are rotating. This cycle is eternal. This is called samsara. Death and birth, death and birth. So if we can develop Krishna's consciousness or Vishnu's consciousness, you name it, it doesn't matter. So you can attain immortality. You see, you see it happening only to the material body, but it doesn't touch you, it doesn't concern you. All these changes, they don't concern you because you're not this body. So then Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature? So what are the symptoms? As we as we had said, you have to find a liberated person in order to get rid of these gunas. See if I'm under the influence of these gunas. Are there any symptoms to understand? So Krishna tell me. How do I tell? So, so in this text, Arjuna is asking very important questions. He wants to know the answers to these questions. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he is already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? Second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That's very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there's no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions asked by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord is going to answer all of them right now. So these questions are very important. You see, this personality is hidden here. It's described here as covered by gunas. So now we are touching not the personality, but the covering, the layer. So there are some other. examples. In theater, for example, when people change their clothes, while they're playing, you know nothing about them, you just know the role. For example, the King of Lear. You just see the King of Lear. If you want to know about this actor, you have to meet him personally, but as soon as he's just playing on the stage, you don't know anything about this person in real life. You just have to start conversing with this person. He's engaged into the play and he even forgets himself. He forgets who he is. If the person is really strong, like is really talented, he even forgets who he is being on the stage. So this is just about us. We cannot break this role. We cannot stop behaving like this. If you stop it, you will start having real problems. Yeah, you will have to protect yourself. So this individuality, it will get uncovered, will get out of these gunas. So now you think this is my daughter or son, husband or wife, father and mother. This is my enemy, this is my friend, but this is all regulated by gunas. But if you see something beyond this, there will be no enemies, no friends, no mothers and daughters. This is a whole different situation. We're all particles of God. We are living in one family. We all have this eternal position. So that's when the real personality is manifested. In the Krishna's consciousness, you converse with people of different age, of different nature. The culture is no different. Either it's a child or old man, they find a common language to communicate because it's beyond the gunas of nature. This is serving to God. This is bhakti yoga. Bhakti means beyond gunas. Love is beyond this world. This is just a reverberation from the higher world, from the higher dimension. So we're just given this opportunity to feel it here. In the mode of goodness, it's widening, it's spreading way wider. It's called love to God. So this is the full manifestation of a personality beyond these gunas. So now we have these four texts together, text from 22 to 25. The Supreme Personality of God said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that these modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady situated equally, well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities, such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. You see, there's such a precise answer to all these questions. It's not like, I suppose, I feel like. It's hard to say. Well, I think I understand something, but I need to express it. Well, give me some time, I need to think. Well, I think this is my opinion. Do you have another opinion? Well, at this stage, I think these things. This is so foolish. It's just a blind man. Like, what is this? Is it a trunk? Is it a snake? Is it a mountain or a wall? We're just guessing. So in Tamas, we have this kind of science. But here you see this answer is so precise. Every word, Krishna says, let's learn from God. So you have to learn from God. Who are you learning from? From the people in mode of ignorance, in illusion. You don't learn anything from them. All the scientists are even not perfect. So one scientist, a big scientist, said to Prabhupada, he said, yes, we admit that we are not scientists. We are not perfect. But then the scientist said, Prabhupada, you're not perfect as well. Yes, said Prabhupada, but I'm learning from God. And who are you learning from? Scientists? Krishna says everything. Krishna knows everything. So only through Krishna you can know everything. So it says, it is said that people may observe the same thing, but they all have these different notions, that different understanding about what's going on. So we're living in an insane house, crazy house. So let's read this text once again. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu. You see, he calls Arjun a son of Pandu. Who is Pandu? A great devotee. He reminds him about his greatness. He's calling to him. Krishna's using 5 or 6 names all the time. He's calling his different names. And also Arjun uses different names related to Krishna. Depending on what he wants to ask or learn, he's using the proper name. So now Krishna calls Arjun son of Pandu because Arjun has asked a very proper question. And these answers are crucially important for all of us. It says about the greatness of him. O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, sattva, attachment, passion, and delusion, ignorance, when they're present, or long for them when they disappear. So let's just make this out. So there's an influence of illumination, then the activation, like the anxiety. So how can illumination trigger hatred? Well, yes, of course it can. For example, you tell someone about God, but he hates it. You tell someone about the mode of goodness, he just he turns away. He doesn't need it. You give him this food, the circuit food, prasadam, but he says, no, I hate it. Just give me meat. He hates all this stuff. So that's what we're talking about. Sometimes illumination triggers hatred. And also not supposed to be attachment to illumination. It's like you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I'm illuminated now. I'm enlightened. So this shouldn't be either attachment. You have So illumination is not mine, but it's given to me. Given to me for what? Just to serve God. Everything that is given to me just to serve God. This is the real enlightenment. If I said that everything is given to me just for myself, this is more of ignorance. So these 3 notions can trigger attachment, delusion, and illumination. But you have to be not attached to it. You have to be transcendental, despite the influence of gunas. So you have to be unwavering. It doesn't mean that you don't follow your duties. It means that you don't have to identify yourself with success, not success, with distress. Of course, we get sad when we're not being successful. For example, I've spent a lot of money and strength, and I've engaged some people, and I got no success in the end. And of course, I'm getting upset. I worry about it. So not identifying. Or vice versa, success. There's glory and money and honor. I'm so happy. So I have to be not attached to it. I'm just continuing to fulfill my duty in front of God. Success or not success, I have to be unattached. And I have to be transcendental. Who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental. So, for example, a person is doing something bad for another person, some evil. We see it's terrible. He's a terrible person, we think, just by his deed, by his action. It's a very interesting moment here. Of course, an action should be either punished or motivated or praised. But it's not like we're talking only about the laws. We're talking about the transcendental view here, a negative action. Where is it coming from? There are some reasons for that. If you know these reasons, you see the gunas of material nature are working here. You see what's going on. The personality himself stays to be, it stays to be not engaged in it, the personality itself. It's just under the influence of gunas. So he's just the instrument of these gunas, and now gunas shows out how terrible it is. Raja guna, tama guna. It has so many instruments. All the people are instruments. So these people, they're called innocents because they do not know what they're doing. They don't have knowledge. Yes, they've committed something bad just because they've done something probably bad in the previous lives. It's always done by the material nature. It got these people engaged in doing it. Sometimes you see this person used to be a good one, but now he's gotten into trouble. He still, inside, he still stays to be a good person, but then Maya, it engages him step by step into committing something negative. Deep inside in his soul, he stays to be innocent, good person. Transcendentalists, they feel for these people. Like, why is he committing all this evil? He's doing all this evil to himself. Yeah, this evil, they get these reactions for their actions. What you sow, you reap. It's the law of karma. But we also understand some other things. This is the material world. And sometimes they have to punish the person, send him to prison. When he gets out, he'll do the same. It's not gonna work. So it has to be beyond all the gunas. In gunas, we just either punish or promote someone. But beyond gunas, we have to have this compassion, illumination, compassion. You have to bring knowledge to people. It doesn't matter what kind of people they are. Bad or good, you just have to bring this knowledge. Do not hate them. Do not get attached to them. If you get attached to them, they will bring you down to the lower gunas as well. If you hate them, you will become a bad person yourself. Hatred will come into your heart. It will enter your heart. So don't you hate and don't get attached. Just serve God. God will always direct all these people. He will take him out to the transcendental level. So there's a lot of interesting stuff inside of us, a lot of interesting things. So he's situated in the self in regards alike happiness and distress. He looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, whose state is situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friends and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities, for the sake of a benefit. Serving God is not material. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. So we're going to finish here. Well, the chapter will still go on. So there are only two texts left. Okay, then probably let's just finish them up today, just to finish this chapter. Text number 26. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Devotional service is a practice of activities on a transcendental level, spiritual level beyond the gunas. So the one who is devotionally serving, he's already elevating beyond gunas. So this activity is selfless, just to satisfy God. This is called akarma. So I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So this is how the 14th chapter is ending here, which is called Three Gunas of Material Nature. So what is the conclusion of this chapter? Devotional service beyond material gunas. If you want to elevate beyond the material nature to overcome it, we need to engage ourselves in the pure devotional service of God. So this is the conclusion of this chapter. So now let's answer some questions. So there will be a lot of questions today, but not too many. So there's a question. If you're always in the mode of preaching, can I just come out of the influence of gunas? So the answer is, if you preach, it means that you remember about Krishna, you talk about Krishna. Yeah, that's a good method of leaving all these gunas of material nature. It can help you. If you talk about transcendental, you become transcendental yourself. If you talk and listen about material things, you become materialistic person yourself. This is a matter of your consciousness. So the one that we are attached with, it influences us. If our consciousness is connected with God, that we are spiritual. If it's connected with matter, that we are materialistic. So another question. The question is, can we preach the mode of goodness if the person is not able to even understand it? The answer is, well, yes, the point is that that's why he's not able to understand it, but you still have to preach to this person. So in mode of passion, there's something that the person can understand, but in the mode of ignorance, the person cannot understand it. It's almost impossible to understand something. So first you have to elevate to the mode of goodness. There, the person will see so many things by himself. Another question. So Rupa Lila, is it also tying us up? Is it meant Rupa of Krishna? It's not an activity, it's not karmic activity. Lila is a spiritual game. It ties up by love. I'm a slave anyway, I'm a servant. It's either a servant of material nature or the servant of love. We are anyway we are servants under any conditions, but we are learning about the form of the shape of Krishna, about his lilas. We develop love to Krishna. This love covers us. We can say that. But we have to choose which servants to be, whom to serve to. Another question. So tell us, please, why a saint king had a demonic son. How did it happen? Well, there was a difficult situation, so that son, he took the characteristics of his mother, not of the son, not of the father, I'm sorry. So the son was in the state of mind of mother, but the personality of God. And the daughter took it differently. The daughter that took the personality after her mother, but the state of mind of her father. So it was difficult situation. So there's another question. If you have a contact with drinking people, smoking people, do you also go down to their consciousness or they elevate to your consciousness? The answer is it all depends on your spiritual power. So be really careful. You have to measure your powers. You have to know where you're going, whom you preach to. Jesus Christ, he could preach even to prostitutes, to the drunkards. No one could do that back in that time. He was criticized for that, but he said the doctor is needed for sick people, not for the healthy ones. He was spiritual. He could preach wherever he wanted to. If we are not spiritually elevated so far and we have communications with drunkards, then we'll be chanting kirtan after having a shot of vodka. They can drag us down. They can drag us down in all these habits. For some, you just don't have to communicate with people in tamas for too long until you are spiritually strong. So there's another question. Where do all these three gunas come from? Who is the prototype in the spiritual world? I don't know if there's a prototype in there, but there are three qualities in there in the spiritual world. Three spiritual gunas, Sat Chit Ananda. Sat, eternity, Chit means knowledge, and Ananda means bliss. So these are the three natures in the spiritual world. In our material world, we just have a reflection. This is called asat, which means temporary, temporary, something that exists temporarily. So then ignorance in Nirananda, the absence of happiness. So all this is reflected in the gunas of natural existence. Another question. When you realize that you've fallen down into the ignorance, what can I do? Should I chant Mahamantra? Well, yes, of course, when a devotee in the mode of ignorance, he should understand it. If he understands that he's there, he might be already transcendental. At least he realizes it. If you realize that you are dirty, you will go and wash your hands. A pig does not understand it, just falls down in the puddle, it gets back up and do whatever it wants. It doesn't realize it's dirty. But if a person gets dirty, gets muddy, he realizes that he's dirty. He will go back home and wash himself. If you understand that you're going down in the mode of ignorance, that's already a good sign. You understand what to do now. You have to chant mantras, you have to read Prabhupada's books, cook prasadam, go and talk to devotees. It means that you are already in this boat. You're not just in the ocean of these gunas, but you are in a boat. You can already control this boat, you can direct it. So these devotees, they can understand the real situation and they can take the correct actions. So another question, how do I talk to my old parents that are not willing to change anything? They just live in a mode of ignorance. So the answer is, why do you want to change the mode of ignorance? You see, there's a proverb, happiness is in ignorance. That's what people say. They do not know many things, they have no problems. The problem is that when people gets to know a lot of things, the more problems he has in his life. So that's the point of view. People living in the mode of ignorance, they don't like being disturbed. But when they get to know there's a law of karma, the reincarnation, people say, no, 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 don't talk to me like that. Don't give me this knowledge. I just want to live in the mode of ignorance. I don't want to know that. Like, like, why are you making all this stuff up? I just don't want to know about it. I've heard about it many times. This is the mode of ignorance. When you tell something to the ignorant people, we just start having more enemies. So give them prasadam, give them food, and that's it. and praise them. Be their friend. If you give some prasadam to a dog, rub it and just become its friend. So just be kind to these people, but you have to keep in mind that this is dangerous. Ignorance is dangerous. So they can harm you, even unconsciously. You have to give them prasadam and praise them. This is helping. But the happiness is not only in ignorance. It turns out there is something else that is very interesting. Maybe they will wake up. So our mission, our task, our purpose is to be friends, not enemies. If we preach making enemies this way, it's not good. So there's another question. If to choose from two actions, when you have a difficult situation, is it better to scream, to just let it go, to let it out, or just keep it down, keep it inside of me? If I get really angry. So the answer is you have to cite Bhagavad-gita very loudly in anger. It will give you some more power. Well, on the one hand, this is a joke, but on the other hand, this is a very good recommendation. In anger, call up to Krishna. With time, I think you will learn how to do it. I don't think you're gonna do it right away. It's a skill. If you have this spiritual experience, if you teach how to do it even in anger, you will become a good preacher. So there's a recommendation. If you get angry, you can say glory to Hare. If you're just about to scream or to let your anger go, some things are described in the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. If a person is taking a false step, it falls down, or an accident has happened, or during the disease, and so on. And if this person says, glory to the Lord of Hari, even fallen down somewhere, if he says, glory to you, Lord of Hari, so this person is considered to be a liberated one. So it says in the 12th verse on Bhagavatam. So who's glorifying God when person has got some problems? Only a liberated person. When you just fall down somewhere, you have to say like, Lord, you're so wonderful, so beautiful. So I was told some story, a real story. There was a bus with pilgrims, Indians. It was going along the bridge across Ganga. So something happened to the bus, and the bus just fell off the bridge into Ganga, and all these people died, all of them. They got drowned. So the bus just went down, just fell off the bridge, and everybody died. But it's curious that there were witnesses of all this. So some they've heard people say Ganga Mai Ki Jai. So this was a liberation, a true liberation. So all these pilgrims, they said the same. So they just glorified Ganga, sinking in it. So this is the Krishna's consciousness. So there's another question. In order to preach, should I be initiated? Is it important? Well, yes, it is important. It should be authoritative from the disciplic succession on behalf of the acharyas. It's good to have initiation. If you want to dedicate your life to preaching, yes, it's needed. Another question. So can you preach for a long time being in Rajaguna? So Mahamantra is transcendental, it's beyond gunas. Mahamantra is Mahamantra. Undoubtedly, we are elevated to the guna of passion from the mode of ignorance. There's a lot of ignorance in us right now because we got it in our schools, universities, in the society, in our civilized society. So we've got this cultivated ignorance. It was all systematically imposed on us. When the whole false system was functioning, all this false material system. So what was the question? So the question is, can I preach in this mode for a long time? So yes, then we are being elevated to passion. So what does it do to us? So imagine we used to have some knowledge, but now the passion is making us active in order to contemplate on it, to improve something. So now we're starting to imply this knowledge. So this is the mode of passion. We use this knowledge to what we already know. We don't know yet that this is ignorance, but this is a knowledge that we can improve. Krishna's consciousness can improve my life, my material education, my career. So this is passion. But in the mode of ignorance, you see that there's nothing to improve. These are just new patches of my old clothes. You have to get rid of these clothes. You have to get a new one. In the mode of goodness, you're just reborn. Everything that you've been taught in the material world, you just get rid of it, and you get the real knowledge in the mode of goodness. But first, you have to go through passion. You don't go to the mode of goodness right away. Of course, you have to chant Mahamantra in the mode of passion, but yes, this is difficult. There are some enemies, anarthas, but if you are Vaishnava, it'll come easy to you because Mahamantra gives you an incredible taste, happiness, deep happiness. And this happiness leads you up. So it's really difficult to go through this mode of passions like a terror. Very strong emotions, feelings, attachments. This is passion. This is the main problem. But until you are chanting Mahamantra while you're chanting it, it's going to elevate you up. And only after this you will feel this relief. So another question. So in this chapter, it is described how to use this knowledge. If we do not use this knowledge, there's no sense in it. So if you have knowledge but you don't use it, there's no sense. Knowing this knowledge about these three gunas, we can implement it in our lives. So there are some questions not related to this topic. So people are asking about different names of Krishna mentioned in the in the New Testament, Yehovah, as far as I'm not mistaken. It's called omnipresent. I'm not sure about the translation, but I've heard these translations. Yehovah. So probably it has to do something with yoga. It's in Sanskrit, Yogava. So it also means, it means a lot of things. It's the connection with reality, with the essence, the connection with the essential things. So probably this name comes from yoga, but this is just my presumption. I'm just judging by the sound. Probably there are some other definitions.